All right, folks, strap in. We are going on a worldwide adventure. Not only worldwide, but also throughout the ages, since before recorded time. And when you brought this up, I don't know how this hadn't come up to us before. I'm actually kind of curious, what kind of brought that on? Did you just catch a documentary or?
TV show.
Okay.
A show called Brilliant Minds. It's on NBC. It's got Zachary Quinto in it, and he's basically he's not a brain surgeon, but he's a head doctor, and he gets this guy that comes in who passed out in a ice plunge. They're trying to figure out what's wrong, and the dude is just in the quest to try to live the longest life ever. He's in the room in the hospital. He's doing calisthenics. He's doing stretches. He's getting red light therapy and all this stuff.
So he's at the point now where it's more of the biohacking.
Yeah.
But biohacking, the quest for eternal life, trying to live longer, this has been something that has taken place throughout all of recorded history and even before that. And it makes a lot of sense when you boil down the fact that out of everything we have here on Earth, we haven't really run into anything that is an actual finite amount.
What do they say? The only two things that are constant are death and taxes?
Yeah. And so when you have a finite amount of time, and everybody is given a different amount of time, some people live longer than others, but that eventually there is going to be an end. And so I think because that's such an unattainable goal, that's what makes it so sought after and valuable, and why it's always been something like dangling a carrot. Even, religious, I'm trying to think religious, what would you call it? The enticement of the afterlife, in which physically you will no longer be here, but on another plane of existence, you'll live forever. It's even presented in the fact that that's the end all be all prize at the end of the rainbow.
Eternal life shows up, probably in every single religion. And we kind of talked about it. I know it's the intro, but we kind of talked about it last night. Was eternal life a pitch to try to get people into your religion? Or was it hopefully somebody who was trying to comfort people that had questions about what happens after they die?
Yeah.
And time is such a finite thing. And like you said, it's different for everybody. There's no guarantees in life. And as soon as you start to realize that, and then you start to hear that it happened all throughout history, it just makes sense.
It's the most natural human condition I can think of, that we always want more. And so it's natural that there would be stories or tales or journeys, quests to find more time. Yeah. To have that. And so today we're going everywhere and anywhere throughout history to discuss these quests for immortality, the people that tried to just do some crazy stuff in order to try to crack the code on everlasting life.
Yeah, I gotta say, I feel like since I've hit 30 and been moving through my 30s, because I still look at you and we're both still in our 20s. In my mind, there's no way that we're in our 30s.
There's a certain point where your mind just kind of freezes. And although you do mature and everything like that, yeah, I think it's a coping mechanism to not think about, to be like, oh, yes, I keep that front and center.
Yeah.
It's still 2010 right now.
Well, and being closer to 40 and starting to think about it, it's like you look back and you start to wonder. It's a very existential thing of starting to wonder, did I waste this time in my life? And I think that there's a belief, I think, that it's your 20s prepare you for your 30s. You get all your stupid stuff out, you handle all that stuff, and then by the time you're 30, you're pretty squared away.
Yeah.
Well, by the time I was 30, I was still trying to figure a lot of shit out in my life.
Yeah, I think there was just the perception, because you always look at your parents.
Yeah.
And again, it's a different generation and everything. There's been more incentive now to not grow up as fast. There's shit that you get into, after you graduate high school, you go to college, and then there's this other plethora of things that you can travel is a lot easier to do. back in even our parents' generation, it was just kind of like, well, we're done with high school. Oh, we went to college. What do we do now? Kind of looking around for some kids in a family.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and do that. There was nothing really to take place of that. But with, the search for everlasting life, people will do some crazy stuff to try to buy themselves some more time.
Oh, yeah. I can't say that I blame them. To the point I was headed before I lost my train of thought. I mean, at age 25, I don't know if I would have tried to dive in a fountain of youth because you were in the youth.
Yeah.
Now, being closer to 40 than ever before, I start to look at it, I'm like, I'd probably roll the dice.
Youth is wasted on the young type
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Truly is.
All right, guys, we're going to get into this thing. Before we do, remember, wherever you're listening to this podcast, 5 stars or whatever the highest rating is, it really helps us with the algorithm and kind of showing up on those lists. Follow us on our socials. Go ahead and just search Historically High. You guys will find your way there. I'm Professor Chris. This is Professor Adam. Let's go hunting for the, what would we say here?
The Elixir of Life.
The Elixir of Life. All right. So we've firmly established that since humans have been humans or whatnot, there has always been some type of allurement of living forever.
Oh, yeah, and it starts out that way. In religious texts and these Abrahamic religions, I didn't realize that pretty much all Abrahamic religions have an Adam and Eve creation, or not a creation story, but basically a Garden of Eden story.
Yeah. An origin story.
That's exactly what it is. And in these religions, it's always believed that the tree of life gave Adam and Eve, or in Islam, Hawa, immortality.
Still Adam in Islam, right?
Yes, apparently they didn't need to change
Adam.
that. Choosing to sin by disobeying God's order and eating the forbidden fruit made them mortal. The original sin of going against God's word made them mortal. So in those books, when they're talking about that stuff in Genesis, we started out with immortal life. And it was through our own undoing.
We started out with immortal life or amortal life?
Immortal life.
Immortal life, okay.
Because as long as they were still in the Garden of Eden and weren't cast out and could eat at the tree of life, they were never going to die. They were never going to age. But man's sin is the reason that we lost immortality. And as they're cast out, they lose access to the tree of life. And then basically the show starts. Like, now you have a finite amount of time to try to procreate, to make the world grow.
It's a story, so I get there's not a lot of like digging into like the psychological aspect of it. But as two people that were, I guess, divinely created, that are already under the impression that they are immortal, do you think the concept of time for them has any meaning? Like if you were to say that these apples will make you mortal, you don't know what death is.
Yeah.
You've never seen it around you. You're the first to. So to them, it's just like, oh, but aren't we supposed to gain was it supposed to be gaining like wisdom or something like that?
It was just life in the garden. It was the most beautiful place on earth.
No. It was. What I'm saying is, what was the allurement of the apple?
Oh, it was because it was forbidden. It was
okay.
The serpent, quote unquote, that came and spoke to Eve, because of course we can't have a story where everybody's mutually culpable. Eve is the one that then tempts Adam with the forbidden fruit. They both eat it. God's angry because he's like, the one rule is you can't have the forbidden fruit, which anal, maybe that was it. Maybe apple's a euphemism for the back door.
Yeah.
And as soon as he caught him doing that, he's like,
pulling out.
Immoral.
Yeah, pulling out.
That was what it was.
Yeah.
And so they're cast out. And this is where everything starts. In the Quran, there's a guy named Hadir that is a mystic. He was out on a journey And along this journey, he found this dried up spring that was barely trickling. For some reason, he dipped his dried fish in the water. Immediately, the spring just jumps to life. And after the spring jumps to life, he takes a drink. Hadir ends up drinking the water. It makes him immortal. He doesn't need food, doesn't need drink. He's just unbound by all physical laws.
So we already get an interpretation of a fountain of youth to some degree.
Yeah, it's a spring that's out in the desert. Mm-hmm. So it's already this incredible spring of life. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of this gets confused as far as like when we get to Juan Ponce and everything in the West is the spring of life for people that are trying to live in these areas is just water.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what keeps people alive.
That's why for the bulk of these early, more ancient myths about immortality, it's always a spring. It's always some type of like water. It's always something that's a fruit or something that can be eaten because everyone can understand that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nourishment for some, and it's rejuvenation for people that have a different.
Yeah, you're just taking the most simple, mundane things and being like, oh, but there's a version of this that makes you live forever.
Yeah, you rolled over on a boat with 1,000 barrels of water and a bunch of food and stuff like that. The people that actually have to drink out of that spring to survive are going to look at it as a spring of life.
Yeah.
Job was granted a spring in Ashkelon that cured his illness after God and Satan seemed to have a little competition over his love of God. This takes place in the Hebrew Bible. So again, we have these Abrahamic religions that all kind of share these things together. To deviate from that, we get all the way down into Egypt by talking about a man named Thoth. Thoth didn't originate in Egypt. Thoth originated in a place that you and I have talked about doing another mythical episode about, and I think it's going to happen. He was a priest king from Atlantis.
Fuck yes, he was.
The lost world of Atlantis. He would bring his civilization's wisdom to Egypt, and he shows up there and brings it because it's a continuation after his continent is destroyed. After Atlantis falls into the water, Thoth needs a place to go, and he ends up being parked in Egypt. And of course, that also changes the way you look at Atlantis, because when he's showing up in Egypt's, we talked about it in the episodes about Egypt. I mean, their culture is so old that it then pushes Atlantis even further back into history to where it's like, it's just, the allure is still there. His Thoth is there. He's credited with inventing Hermeticism, writing, other sciences. He's considered the scribe of the gods, and he becomes the god of the moon. While he is the god of the moon in Egypt, there's a man named Osiris that's the ruling king of Egypt. He would marry Isis. These all become gods eventually because this follows a very Greek way of thinking.
This is more of their creation myth,
which then begs the question, the Egyptians probably had more influence on the belief that the Greeks had in the gods.
It's all in the Mediterranean, and that's why I think it kind of gets lost from like a standpoint of the world. Yeah. Egypt, Africa, it's just right across the Mediterranean from Greece and all that stuff. That's why, Alexandria, that's all that stuff.
They were both children, because of course everybody's related back in this time, from the earth god Geb and the sky goddess Nut. Osiris was killed by his brother / other claimant to the throne, Set. Every legend is a little bit different. It can range from Set killed him because Osiris had kicked him, because he was banging Set's consorts. I mean, it's just a plethora of things. But either way, Set would assume the kingship after he kills Osiris. Isis then prays to the gods to try to bring Osiris back so they can have an offspring that would then become king. Dun, dun, dun. She turns to Thoth. Thoth then gives her basically the blueprint to bring Osiris back. She ends up binding him in wrappings because he was cut and strewn throughout Egypt. So she gets all the pieces together. She binds him in wrappings. She gives him a blessing. Osiris becomes alive again. They end up having sex, and just enough time for them to produce the son Horus.
Is this where mummification comes in because she had to wrap him back together? It's just the symbolism of being wrapped, being reborn in the afterlife, things like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
This is what it is. This is the beginning belief in the mummification process.
This is what told them, like, hey, this is what you got to wear into the afterlife. I know it sounds weird. Hear me out. Well, we're just going to wrap the shit out of you because that's what the gods did.
Yeah. And it all kind of starts off this myth of eternal life for Osiris, who then becomes the king of the dead. So we do have to kind of cut some distinctions here because there are two different things that we're looking at, but we're just pretty much going to stick with physical immortality. Eternal life plays a role, like I said at the top of the episode, in pretty much every religion. Your soul will live on for eternity. Our quest to find immortality in this episode is solely physical. You're staying on this plane of existence.
It's mortals trying to find immortality, not mortals, I'm doing this in air quotes, that then ascend to godhood. A lot of this isn't really ascension. There are some stories about it gives you additional powers and things like that, but this is solely mortals in their search for immortality.
Exactly. We're going to move to the Sumerians now. There were 5 Sumerian poems that date back around 2100 BCE. So we're talking 4,000+ years ago that these are coming from. And it gives us the beginning of the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Did you ever have to read this in high school?
No.
This is a very fun story that I think we read maybe junior year. And it's an exciting read. It's definitely flowery and a little bit tough to get through, but at the same time, the story is just so good. There's a more comprehensive version that comes out of the epic that was written in the 18th century BCE, so 1800 BCE, that tells the story of Gilgamesh, who was the king of the Uruk people. He ends up being not a great king. The gods aren't very happy about it, so they create this man out of mud called Enkidu. And Enkidu's a wild man. Enkidu basically is raised by wolves until he ends up running into a woman who's a woman of the night who gives him 7 days and nights of passionate lovemaking that is said to turn Enkidu from animal into man. So as soon as he's turned into man, Enkidu heads off to try to fight Gilgamesh.
She cultures, how do I phrase this? Vaginally cultures him?
Yeah, it seems to be a lot of that in there. They would basically do battle to a stalemate till they realized that they had more in common than they didn't, and they would become great friends. So, of course, pissed the gods off even worse because Enkidu was sent down to punish Gilgamesh, and now they're getting along famously. They would end up going and basically leveling the cedar forest after they would go through the protector that was placed there by the gods named Humbaba. And this sacred forest, because the Sumerian lands didn't have a lot of trees and wood, so they would have these areas where they did have forests that they would try to protect. So the story is all about Gilgamesh going through and basically challenge the gods. Gilgamesh would then run afoul of Ishtar, because Ishtar had a spotty history with the men that she had married end up dying or basically being tortured by her for doing one or the other.
The Ishtar are the name of the wizards from Lord of the Rings.
We got another fun tie-in, another fun Harry Potter tie-in later, too.
Oh, yeah. I'm aware. Oh, come on.
Really messed me up when I was doing research and I was reading a story and I was like, wizardry. Oh, shit, this isn't real.
You got to go back and check it 3 times to make sure it wasn't from the book.
Exactly, yeah. And I had forgotten the name until until I was digging back into it.
Well, it's because here it's Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah, which didn't they call it the Philosopher's Stone everywhere else?
Yeah, everywhere else.
So Ishtar, being angry at Gilgamesh for rejecting his advances, ends up sending down a bowl from heaven.
She was the Mesopotamian goddess of love, beauty, sex, war, and justice. She kind of she covered a wide swath.
Yeah, and a lot of emotion within that goddess of. Once they ended up slaying the bull, the gods were angry that Gilgamesh was doing so well in life, so they took his best friend Enkidu. Gilgamesh is torn up. He would end up setting out on a long journey to meet with the man that survived the Great Flood. And now we're getting into flood myths. And this is another flood myth that shows up so far before the Bible was written. It's insane. As he goes to meet this man, he would run into him and his wife. His name was Unta Napshtim.
Unta Pishtim.
Unta Pishtim, that's right. They were the only survivors of the flood. There's a few different variations on this story, but basically he's told to retrieve a plant to make the Elixir of Life. Of course, just like in Adam and Eve, and you had the serpent comes and steals this plant from him.
Yeah, it's as simple as like Utnapishtim is like, listen, immortality is not for mortals or anything like that. He badgers him a little bit more, and he's like, fine, listen up. There's a secret water plant. If you go down, you get it. That'll actually, no, it restores your youth. Now, I don't know if it was one of those things where it restored your youth, but then you had to repeatedly do it, because there's a lot of that in these myths as well. As some of these things are, one shot and you're done, and it just takes care of you. Other ones, there's a time frame to it, but as long as you've, eat it or ingest it or bathe in it within that time frame, it prolongs to basically give you an immortal life.
This is that scenario, except for he doesn't get it.
Yeah, so he gets the plants, goes to like a bathhouse. I imagine in a bathhouse, what is he doing? Is he out in the river or anything like that? But he's chilling out. I'd like to imagine in a hot tub.
Yeah.
He's chilling out. He's got his stuff, and then sitting on the side of the hot tub is the plant. He hasn't taken it yet. He's getting ready to. And a snake ends up coming up and eating it. And then in front, he's just like, what the fuck, man? And the snake just starts shedding its skin. It does its little renewal thing. And he had only grabbed the one water plant. Can't go back and get any more. So immortality gone for this guy.
Slips right through his fingers. Interestingly enough, though, I do think he finds immortality. And obviously going into this, I know immortality is not real or anything like this. But this was kind of my second glance at it to really think about it, because when he returns to Uruk, they say that he's a lot calmer, he's a lot quieter, and he's not as outgoing. And part of it is because Utnapishtim ended up telling him that immortality isn't based upon a person, immortality is based upon a society.
Yeah, and that it's one of those, immortality can take many forms.
Yeah.
It has its literal meaning, but then you could technically live forever in story, in an epic, if you will.
Well, not to mention your mark on life can be a societal mark. It can make the world a better place to continue on for eternity. So there is a little bit of immortality in that story that he does achieve.
It's also it's not like a John Hughes movie, but it's the classic like redemption story to teach people that it's never too late to change your ways. I think is what it is. He ends up searching for this thing that's unattainable. He has it in his grasp. He loses it. And instead of going crazy and becoming worse, he learns to let it go and to try to make try to live the rest of his life as well as he can. So that way he is immortal in the eyes of his people.
And it continues the immortality through the people. I imagine the people were probably pretty pumped when he came back and he was a little bit more chilled out. Mm-hmm. I don't think his life may have lived on too much longer after
Maybe he didn't
died.
Find a special water plant. Maybe he found a special leaf that made him nice and chill.
His eyes were just red all the time. Do you have anything before we get to our old buddy Herodotus?
No.
So 3rd century BCE, Herodotus mentions that Persians from the 5th century discovered the Fountain of Youth, as he describes it, a magical spring in the land of the Macrobians in northern Africa. Now, northern Africa at this point in time was about as far south as the known world was, right? Mm-hmm. So in that instance, him saying the northern part of Africa, he just means basically the South Pole. He goes on to describe it in, I would say, pretty glowing terms. The Ichthyopegid, whatever, then in their turn question the king concerning the term of life, diet, his people, and we're told that most of them lived to be 100 or 120 years old. Back then, that's immortality. I mean, that's 2 lifetimes.
What calendar are they going off of at this point, too?
Well, Thoth apparently was credited with the 365-day calendar.
Oh, fuck off.
Yeah, weird how that all happens, right?
You got to wonder too if it's like you remember in Kingpin where he sees Ishmael bowling.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's your average? He's like, I like, 280 or something like that. He's like, oh my God. Takes him on the road and finds out that because Amish do everything all the same they do, and then an extra half, that he bowls 15 frames. That's kind of what this reminds me of. It could be that the year for these people was like 6 months.
Yeah.
And so someone came down, they're like, how old are you people? And they're like, that guy's 120.
Why do they keep celebrating New Year's halfway through the year? What are they doing?
Ignore that. They're 120. Yeah.
Some even went beyond that age. They ate boiled flesh. I'm assuming this has to be animals, and we're not talking about cannibalism. They had their drink, nothing but milk. When the Icthiopegi showed wonder at the number of years, he led them to a fountain. Oh, that must have been the Persians that he was leading, the long name. He led them to a fountain wherein they had washed. They found their flesh was all glossy and sleek, as if they had bathed in oil, and a scent came from the spring like that of violets. The water was so weak, they said, that nothing would float in it, neither wood nor any lighter substance, but all went to the bottom. In the account of this fountain be true, it would be their constant use of water from which it makes them so long-lived. So we have Herodotus, again, not having a lot of great contact with the Persians. I think we learned that through the Achaemenid Empire.
We've talked enough about Herodotus. This dude just had a really active imagination and was able to just take more mundane things and be like, I'm gonna spice the fuck out of this.
We're gonna punch it up. It's gonna live on in history. People are still gonna be talking about me all the time because I am this creative.
How do I keep the story of Alexander going? I'm just going to go ahead and add in that, like, oh man, Alexander went on a search for the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah, and that's just how it goes with these Fountain of Youth stories and these Elixir of Life stories. I'm sure that a lot of these have kernels of truth in them. As far as how true it is, I'm not exactly sure. Do you have anything for the 12th century?
Is that before or after Alexander?
I believe it's before.
Okay.
This is actually, I guess, even a throwback to before Herodotus.
Okay.
This is CE. So this is after Alexander.
Okay. So with Alexander the Great in his, I don't know if you want to call it a biography or his histories or anything like that, when he journeyed to India, he searched for someone who could teach him how to become immortal and was reportedly told that there was a special pool where he could get, eternal life. So you're seeing these things pop up, not just kind of in the same region where these stories are coming from, but also in different countries. Like kind of how Adam was saying, like every country has its own way of describing this. Just like there's so many countries that have a Bigfoot or a Yeti or a Sasquatch or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, we did an episode on that too, huh?
Yeah.
It's so cool to just see it. And we were kind of talking about it pre-episode. All of these places, the Alexander story, I forgot what it's called, the Alexander Romance, I think is what it's called, is translated into so many different cultures to where every single time there's no definite place that this is because the countries are pointing to other places that are further away. And there's a chance that most of the time, if it's coming secondhand knowledge, the people that were telling Alexander where the spring was were probably like, I don't like you being here because you're taking over my stuff.
Yeah.
It's all the way up north in that other tribe's area.
In Hindu mythology, there was this stuff called Amrita, Amrita, and this was like a substance that was produced during this thing called the Sumadra Manthan, and it was this cosmic churning of this ocean of milk that was done by gods and demons. And then what was produced was this Amrita, and it would grant the gods a lifespan of 36,000 years. And so there would be this constant struggle between gods and demons for possession of this Amrita so they could, continue living.
And it sloshed around, and then some of the Hindu people got a hold of it, or...
No, but this is just in their mythology that this is how, people can attain immortality.
Very interesting. Hinduism, I didn't really look into it, but as far as like belief in reincarnation, that's technically a form of immortality.
Yeah, it's a mixture of the spiritual immortality and the physical immortality. It provides a loophole that your body can die, but then you can come back into it. So they get around that pesky thing about aging.
Well, it's also growing up Mormon, you're told that your body is a temple, so you need to treat it correctly. This was back in the time when you weren't allowed, I think for girls, it was more than 2 piercings, and you definitely weren't allowed tattoos, which somehow is cool now. But your body is supposed to be treated this way because once you die and the resurrection happens, you will return to your most perfect mortal form.
Yeah.
So it was always sold to us that you don't want to desecrate your temple because whatever you get in this life, you will be taken in the afterlife. It's just so interesting how you can get around the idea of eternal life by being reincarnated into something else. I don't hate it. I think it would be cool if that was a more truer thing, to where you could continue to live a life, and then based upon how good of a person you were in the life previously would get you to where your rank is in the next life.
Yeah, there's an aspect of that, of trying to be a better person, I think, because if you were just in the same body, you'd never experience anything from anybody else's shoes. Yeah. But through reincarnation, by your 5th life, you have led many different lives at that point. You have a much better perspective. Greeks. During the height, Hellenistic period, things like that, during the classical period, you had the Greek gods. And we got to talk about something during the Heracles episode, which was the Apples of Hesperides.
Yes.
And these were the ones that he was essentially told to steal as part of his 11th labor.
He tricks Atlas in holding up the sky. Atlas goes back and gets the apples because that's where he was from, while Hercules is holding up the sky, and then Atlas comes back. He's like, I got a new lease on life.
I can't remember. But
pretty sure that was
you seem so confident in that I'm just going to go with this.
Hercules ends up tricking him into taking the sky back.
Yep. With the Greek gods themselves, you have this stuff called ambrosia. And no, it's not that shit that one aunt always brings for Thanksgiving that's like the pink stuff, and you're never quite sure what's in it. Are there vegetables in it? What is this thing that's crunchy, like
a sweet salad?
Yeah,
what are we doing here?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. But ambrosia was basically the food of the gods. Couldn't find an explanation for like how it was described or anything like that. It's just the food of the gods. I imagine it looks like a golden Jello mold, and you can just form it into whatever you want. That's just what they just sat there eating Jello the whole time.
I'd like to think of it as a euro.
It could, yeah, a glowing golden euro.
Yes.
There was also nectar, which was the drink of the gods. Now, ambrosia was directly tied to the gods' immortality. They ate that to maintain immortality. So that's something, again, even the Greek gods are having to consistently kind of re-up on this stuff. The nectar was being the drink. It was the lesser, but it could heal demigods, and it provided a level of immortality. They kind of go hand in hand. Sometimes it's just referred to with the ambrosia, or the ambrosia and the nectar together. Greek mythology also talks about Achilles. Achilles was essentially made immortal, and the only reason he died was because he was shot in the heel. Now, the reason that his heel, the Achilles heel, is when he was being made immortal, how his mother did that was she dipped him in the river Styx, so the river that runs through the underworld, and she had to hang on to him. So she was like, what's the one part that I can hang on to and dip as much of him in there as I possibly can? So she held the back of one of his heels and just held him in and then pulled him out. So that was the only part that was technically mortal.
There's no way he's ever going to get shot with an arrow in the back of the heel.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know where else you go. Do you try to pinch the skin under the armpit? Or
ears,
something like that.
The weenus. Maybe that's why you don't have any feeling in that skin on your elbow.
Oh, maybe the balls, the gooch.
Yeah, I don't like that.
That's pretty covered, though. I mean, but then how do you get the legs down? Like, yeah, that maybe just doesn't work because you wouldn't be able to dip the body low enough.
It would be a Mission Impossible type situation coming down from the ceiling in that scenario.
Now, there was this dude named Tantalus. And this guy stole ambrosia from the gods to bring down to a bunch of his buddies and friends. And
Immortal?
A mortal that did this. Now, he's caught, of course, because they don't play that shit. And he's punished by being provided immortality. But he is basically placed in this place for all time, and he's in a pool, and there's fruit trees above his head. But every time he approaches the water to get a drink, the water flows away from him and drains. Oh. And the branches are just out of his reach, even when he jumps. So he lives forever, but he can never be sated because he can never drink, he can never eat.
That sounds awful.
Now, this takes place in Tartarus, so like the hell of the Greek gods and everything. This is where he's sent for this punishment.
Where Hades is hanging out.
But the word tantalizing, the etymology is from Tantalus, because tantalizing, the fruit's right above him. He can't reach it. The water's right there, but it flows away from him. He's tantalized for all time.
I don't like that immortality. That immortality doesn't sound
No, that
fun
sucks,
to me.
but like that's kind of like it's that revenge of the Greek gods of saying, we're going to give you what you wanted. We're going to give you what you stole, but you're not going to enjoy it.
Yeah, and it was a sin.
Yeah.
It was a sin against the gods. Mm-hmm. Back again with the sin. 12th century CE, we're still sticking actually with the Greek god theme. Stories of an emerald tablet that was written by a man named Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes, the Greek god.
I love that name.
Trismegistus?
Yeah.
I believe it means like the third most great or the thrice most great. So like you're the
Third
great
place?
3 times in a row.
Oh, I thought meant like third place great.
I don't know either way, because Hermes Trismegistus just didn't exist. They believed that it was a conglomeration of Thoth and Hermes being the two, because Hermes obviously had figured out immortality, because that's what he ended up giving to Osiris. So this tablet that was written by Hermes Trismegistus held the secrets of the world and the heavens. It included philosophical principles and the ingredients that were needed for the creation of the Philosopher's Stone. Now, we talked about it in the Newton episode, and alchemy. It seems absolutely fascinating. There was a book that I ran into that felt familiar, and I realized I read it in junior high. It's called The Alchemist. It was written by the Spanish dude named Paulo Coelho. Very, very good book that I remember certain sections of it because it was just so cool. But alchemy was basically the attempt to try to create the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone could turn any base metal into gold. And if drank, because it's not an actual stone, it can give you immortal life.
Yeah, weird naming for it, but basically this legendary alchemical substance that itself could produce the elixir of life, or it had a little bit of that Midas touch mythology in there too, where, because it's not always hand in hand that it can turn stuff to gold, but you're trying to get other people on board with this. So let's just throw in a little bit of another culture's flavor on that. There's a character that's tied to it, and I can't say for sure if this dude exists. Probably not, but they use his name. The reason I think probably not is because they use his name in Harry Potter, but at the same time, you can go back and tie it to
a French alchemist
named Nicolas Flamel. And did he exist? Did he not exist? Him and the Philosopher's Stone are kind of intrinsically tied together.
So Flamel in the book, what does he do?
I don't know.
In Harry Potter.
Oh, he's the one that creates it. He is the one that actually creates the Philosopher's Stone.
It's interesting because Nicolas Flamel was said to have used the Emerald Tablet to create the Philosopher's Stone, and then Flamel still is supposed to be living to this day. There's so much as far as this Emerald Tablet goes, and there's some other things that I kind of squirreled away, the Book of Aquarius and a few different things that we'll have for some other episodes. But basically, it was these alchemic writings that are often referenced in a lot of other alchemist writing, And it said that this was a direct, basically, recipe to the Philosopher's Stone, whereas all of this other alchemic writing is written, they say, in code. And code's the most convenient thing in the world, because code can mean I'm hiding the true meaning and only another alchemist can figure it out. Or code can mean that they didn't know what the fuck they were doing, and this was just a bunch of stuff that they wrote down to try to make it sound like they did something.
Yeah. So we're getting into mortals seeking immortality now. There's a couple other immortal kind of mythological things. One of them is in Chinese mythology. There's these things called the Peaches of Immortality. Ooh. They supposedly grow in a celestial garden of the Queen Mother of the West in the Kunlun Mountains. Now, these trees can produce peaches of like 3 types. One you have to eat, one blooms every 3,000 years, one type blooms every 6,000 years, one type blooms every 9,000 years. Oh, so shit. As you go up, so each one gives you immortality. But then if you're patient and you wait, you get like different powers and stuff. So the 6,000 year one will grant you the power of flight as well. And then the 9,000 puts you on par in like rank and power as the sun and the moon. So pretty big step up from flight. Then you're on par with the sun and the moon. There was a novel that was written called Journey to the West, and it kind of focuses on the Peaches of Immortality, and it tells the story of this guy named the Monkey King who steals the peaches. So like it gets like crazy like that. But Norse mythology. The Norse had, the golden apples. I'm not sure if they grew on Yggdrasil, the world tree that they had that tied together Asgard and all that kind of stuff. But the golden apples were grown in an orchard on Asgard or in Asgard. I say on Asgard because I'm so used to Marvel and it's like a floating rock thing in space.
Isn't it in God of War too?
It's another plane in God of War or something. I don't know.
I could have
You have more God of War experience than I do.
I could have sworn there's an Asgard in there.
But it's grown in this orchard, and it's protected by Idun, who's the goddess of spring and rejuvenation. She is the keeper of the apples. Now, I don't know if they ever mention it in like the Marvel movies or anything like that, but this is one of those things that the gods have to re-up on. Mm-hmm. So every so often they got to have one of these apples for a snack and be able to kind of re-up their immortality.
It's so fun.
So I think this is the point when we're going to be moving from these more mythological, from a sense of like they're part of a creation story or a godly story or religion or something like that, to people having the, I don't want to say capability because it's not the right word, but having the, not capability, but just the ability to try some experimentation out on things that they believe that will crack the code on this elixir of life.
Well, it's almost because I hate giving alchemy credit because it drives me nuts. There's something about it that I don't like.
I love it, dude. The word alchemy to me is just a badass word. But basically it was just science. It's chemistry. Yeah. It's a mixture of science and chemistry, but trying to do things that science and chemistry really can't do. It was kind of a umbrella term, I think.
The thought of alchemy in fiction excites me. Mm-hmm. The thought of Isaac Newton sitting there working on alchemy with the brain that he had frustrates me. Like the amount of time spent trying to do this. And I get that everybody has to have a hobby, and this was not a hobby for some of these dudes.
I think that was him checking stuff off the list. He was going everywhere. He went math. He went kind of the more obscure occult stuff with the alchemy. Mm-hmm. He did the space shit. I think he was just somebody that was like, I'm not going to leave a stone unturned. I'll dabble in all this stuff to see if maybe any of it has any merit.
Well, and there's also the tie that he had with religion. And alchemy and religion seem to go hand in hand for a very long time, but it's because we've talked about so much in the past is colleges would spring from basically like priests teaching these lessons.
Yeah.
So every single jump as far as like mathematics or anything like that had this background of we're learning this because this is what God did. And so to think that Newton is trying to chase the Philosopher's Stone, not to make gold and get rich, but to basically try to prove how God did things.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating, but at the same time, it's like, it's too far outside my understanding, I think, for me to really appreciate it.
All right. Now, instead of just people writing crazy shit, we now get into people actually doing crazy shit to try to become immortal.
Yeah, I still don't know if any of this stuff can really be true, though. Like, I understand the attempts, but this first guy that we're going to talk about still being parked over in Asia in the 3rd century BCE, so we're talking about before the Common Era again, so again, way back in history, Qin Shi Huang, the emperor of the Qin dynasty, invited magicians and scientists and alchemists and everybody that he could to his palace to try to find this answer for immortality.
This dude is a huge deal. So this guy was the start of the Qin dynasty, right?
Uh-huh.
First to unify all of China, or what they considered all of China at that point. This is the guy whose tomb has the terracotta army.
There's a reason.
No, I get that. But what I'm saying is people know who this guy is, but they don't know this part of it. So this guy has just united all of China. He's not that old at this point, but he's like, I did all this. I should do this forever. So I'm going to basically put out feelers to anyone and everyone trying to find the elixir of life, or the way to, everlasting life.
Yeah. And I think he, in the attempt to try to lengthen his life, I think he shortened it quite a bit, because these elixirs that he's being brought by all these people, some are fine, some don't affect him.
He made it a lot longer than I thought he was when I started reading the stuff.
Yeah. Some made him pretty fucking sick. Pretty bad. He ends up running into a man named Shufu, who was considered a magician. He was somebody that was in his court. Not a very old man, so definitely not in the game for very long.
He was what he would consider an alchemist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A Chinese alchemist. Shufu ends up talking him into trying to go on this hunt. Huang ends up sending him to try to find the Mount Penglai. Mount Penglai is believed to be where the immortals resided. Mm-hmm. I think there's another crossover here into Marvel with the immortals.
No, it's different things.
Is it different?
Yeah.
Okay. But they're said to have had this elixir of life that's supposed to be keeping these immortals alive on Mount Penglai. You're in China. It's an island with a giant mountain on it. You can really only think of one other place that's going to be to the east that's going to have that, and it's Japan. Like, they didn't realize that there were people over in Japan. Maybe they did.
And maybe they were the immortals, and they had heard these people that, possibly had a resemblance to them, but then they feel like lived longer because they were on this small island or something like that. I mean, this guy was really going after it. Not just this Zifu guy, but there were actually like 2,000 years ago, there were these wooden orders that were found. You remember how they wrote stuff on like slats of wood?
Yeah.
These slats of wood that were orders sent out throughout the dynasty requesting anyone that has an idea of how to make someone live forever, they need to come to whatever the capital was at that point. That Zifu guy, he took like thousands of men and women with him.
Tons.
He was provided a ton of ships and then never seen again.
Well, he was seen the first time. Comes back empty-handed. As he comes back empty-handed, Huang's like, yo, I need my stuff. My time's coming nearer.
That's true, because they did explore a ton of like islands in the South China Sea first. And I think that's why they had to start going a little bit further, because they had already covered the places that were close to China.
Knowing that Wong's going to be mad at him for coming back empty-handed without the Elixir of Life, he says that this large serpent blocked their way. Is there a chance there was a large serpent out in the water back then? I can't say.
It's Dragon Man.
More than likely. it was probably because these Chinese boats, and we've talked about China's Navy for the longest time, where they were never a go out and make something happen. It was more defensive boats. So as you're breaking further out into the ocean and you're staying out of these seas, you're going to run into rough water. You're also going to be seeing giant fish. You're going to be seeing whales and things like that are breaching. So to say that a giant serpent that maybe swelled the water up isn't too far out of bounds. What does become too far out of bounds is his second voyage includes, as you were talking about, thousands of men and women, 3,000 young virgin boys and girls. Not sure what that's about. Don't need to unpack whatever Shufu had going on there.
Offering.
Oh, maybe. Okay.
That's all I can. That's the non-disgusting thing I can think of. But yeah, I mean, what are you going to offer the immortals and the gods? You're going to offer, do you guys want virgins? You guys want to just sacrifice these virgins? Listen, not my business what you want to do with it. Just need the recipe for the Elixir of Life and I'll be on my way.
Well, there is, I think, a non-terrible reason beyond the good ones that you came up with. Along with these thousands of people and these 200 boats and these 3,000 virgins, he would also ask for archers to try to take down the beast that's out into the water. He ends up bringing along 1,000-year-old magician, which seems like if there's 1,000-year-old magician in China,
already got it figured out, right?
Yeah, maybe that's the guy that I would probably go to talk about immortality because he's 1,000 years old. They also take along seeds and agricultural equipment because if they're going to be away for a while, you probably want that. Or maybe if you're trying to sneak away and start your own civilization, that's also possibly some building blocks to do that.
Yeah, I see this as a situation where he comes back the first time and he's like, you've really disappointed me. And he's like, give me one more chance, just one more chance. So I'm going to need to go a little bit further. It's going to sound crazy, but I need 3,000 virgins. I'm going to need some soldiers, obviously. Yeah, that should be good. And then on the slide goes and buys a bunch of farming equipment and seeds.
He just starts his own convent and he has 1,500 boys and 1,500 girls to start repopulating.
Probably found his way to Japan. That's just where he was hanging out.
So there's a belief, yeah. So not to get too far ahead of our story here, Shufu kicks off a second time and is never seen or heard from again. There are different parts. They believe initially that he landed near Okinawa, which makes less sense to me because he would have traveled around Japan to hit it on the east side of the country, which, I mean, potentially, depending on how far out in the Pacific he got before he started going north or south.
Yeah, that's true, too.
It could happen that
wherever
way.
the tides go and everything.
Yeah. But there's different places that actually claim that this is where Shufu landed. And it's some kind of tree. Some sort of a blossom tree or something like that that's said to be 2,000 years old that was supposedly planted by Shufu over there. It's believed that he stayed. There's some writings that came out later. I don't know if it was from somebody that had returned from a voyage that ran into him or something like that. It basically said he found flat grasslands in calm water and decided to throw in anchor there and basically start his own people.
Oh, man, the boats got destroyed. Couldn't get back. I don't know what you want us to do.
Yeah, you'd think the guy that took all the farming equipment and all the virgins with him probably wasn't going to go start his own area.
Well, and here's the thing. So Qin Shi Huang, he's not just sitting and waiting, being like, man, I hope this guy comes back. No, he's still on the hunt for this thing. He's got people coming into his court. He's getting cocktails mixed to him. He's taking pills. He's taking potions containing jade, arsenic, and I put arsenic second because the third one is even more ridiculous, mercury.
Can we really say through doing all of these episodes and how many people just took mercury that it's that crazy? It's bad.
No, it's I get that. It's hindsight is what provides us the context on mercury. The way that it looks to them without having any knowledge of the harmful effects at this point of what to do with it, it looks ethereal. It looks like nothing else. It's a reflective liquid that looks like metal but moves around like water. Like, this has got to be created by the gods, and if it's been created by the gods, ingesting this stuff has got to do something to give you some godly power. What are the gods? They're immortal. Maybe you'll get a little bit of that. And you know what? We like jade. So we're going to powder up a little bit of jade, mix that in there too, and, double whammy.
I don't know why this is a dumb thought that I had. They put mercury in the old style thermometers, right?
Yes.
And then as it gets hotter, the mercury ends up expanding.
Yeah, and it carries, yeah.
Does that mean that in cold places, mercury's less, and in hot places, mercury's more?
That was the red liquid in thermometers. Are you talking about older than that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure mercury was in thermometers. Like the old stick glass thermometers.
Never one that I used or saw then.
Yeah. But you're right. If there's any substance on Earth that looks like it's created by gods, that's the one. So you're going to roll the dice on the one that looks the most celestial of forces.
Yeah, James Cameron loved the stuff so much he turned the T-1000 basically into looking like a walking, shape-shifting pile of mercury.
It didn't go well for Wong. He ends up dying. There's a good potential chance that he died from poisoning from an elixir that was laced with a lot of mercury. But as you alluded to before, Wong eventually probably made amends and understood that he was just going to die, and that's why he created the Terracotta Warriors, was to be buried with him to protect him in the afterlife.
Do you know what they also put in the temple?
What else is in there?
Little streams of mercury.
Really?
Yes.
So just in case, the stuff that killed him, we'll keep it in there.
I bet they didn't think that that's what killed him.
True.
Despite it turning his fingers black and shit.
He should have seen this coming, and this is why I was so shocked by all the stuff that he would try as far as like elixirs, was he had like multiple assassination attempts on his life. So if you're worried about an assassination attempt taking you out, what are you doing bringing the magicians and the alchemists in there to try to make you elixirs to drink?
You're trying to make you immortal so you'll be able to heal from any wound if you do have an assassination attempt.
But
one begets the other. I get what you're saying.
It's the easiest assassination ever to just go spike something with a ton of mercury and give it to him and kill him.
Yeah. Maybe assassins had a certain look about them, and he had a very, very practical vetting process.
There was a sense of honor in killing him with a sword instead of just with a laced elixir, I guess. Do we got anything before we get into Europe?
Let's see.
I know that there's stuff from everywhere, and we kind of did a smattering, but it's just also fascinating.
There is some stuff from Japan.
Yes.
But this is actual things that had occurred.
Now?
Did you have anything from Japan?
No.
Okay. So this is jumping forward, but we're in that area anyway. So Japan, 9th century, there's this person named Kobo Daishi. And basically he has a weird kind of like branch off sect of, I want to say Taoism or something like that. But basically, or maybe it was like a sect of like weird extreme Buddhism. And he basically, his teachings and the way he went about stuff, it was kind of a cult, inspired this process of self-mummification called, okay, I'm going to try to do this, Sokushimbutsu. And this was, I don't know, it's a weird mixture of some type of like Egyptian spice to it and everything. But basically what this guy did, because this self-mummification was supposed to somehow provide you immortality, kind of like you hear about those people that meditate without food or water, and it's the meditation that sustains them.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of that idea that if you could reach the ultimate, you mummified yourself so you didn't decay.
Yeah.
You put your body into such a state through this, because there's stuff that leads up to this, through this self-mummification. That was the last step, but it was supposed to preserve your body, but you would essentially be immortal through the same ways that you're being provided sustenance through your meditation and you reach a higher plane. It's crazy shit.
Wow.
It's cult shit.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah. So essentially this guy goes through 1,000 days of meditating, feeding on nothing but trees. Not like the fruits of the trees or anything, but
Bark,
like the bark and
leaves.
stuff like that, to eliminate any type of body fat. Then goes through 1,000 days of basically drinking a type of poisonous tea in order to, I guess, just flush out anything and everything inside of you and to empty everything. After doing this, he had himself wrapped and everything like that, and then was, I believe, put into like a tomb for like a self-burial.
Still alive.
Still alive, yes. They ended up breaking in like a number of years later, and his body was decomposing. So, of course, spoiler alert, he didn't make it. They just found a decomposing body at that point. But other than that, let's see, because we're going into Europe. No, man. The only other thing I can jump back to it is when we go into Europe, we'll talk a little bit about the Holy Grail.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Before we jump into Europe, you want to do a bathroom break?
Yep.
Cool.
Well, hey there, all you sexy historians. How you guys doing?
It is time for
Socials.
Where can they find us on Instagram?
If they want to follow us, they can find us at Historically High Pod on Instagram.
That goes the same for Threads as well. You can also find us on Twitter.
Tell them about Twitter.
Historically High. That's Historically HI on Twitter.
And if you want to email any of your comments or suggestions, where can they find us at, Adam?
At Historically High Podcast at gmail.com.
Gmail. All right, and back to the show. All right, where are we going next?
Might as well take a trip over to Europe to then take another stop back in the East, because in the 12th century, Europe saw this letter circulating from a man named Prester John. Now, we mentioned Prester John in the Marco Polo episode. Mm-hmm. Prester John was this mythical king of this Eastern Christian kingdom. This kingdom was said to have contained a fountain of youth that had the restorative powers that were said to have been that had worked on man and beast. I believe it would restore all of the men that walked back into it to like the age of 32.
Oh, perfect.
Which, yeah, it feels like a very
prime
precise number.
Yes.
That everybody would, I think, like to have back.
It would be funny if it was like men will revert to the age of 32, women 22. Like, why are the women 22?
It's just that at 22, we weren't good.
Yeah.
I was pulling a lot of we were pulling a lot of shenanigans when I was 22. Yeah.
I'm just saying because this is written by dudes, so they're like, don't make the women the same age. Let's make them younger.
Prester John was an interesting figure because this kingdom that he has over in Asia it's just a work of fiction. I don't know quite what the angle was, besides potentially it was the church saying that they had stretched further into Asia than had previously been known.
It was like a version of like Shangri-La, but in reverse for them.
Yeah, okay. I could see that. I still think that Prester John and Genghis Khan or any real Khan, Kublai Khan, any of those Khans sound very similar to Prester John.
I want to say we also talked about Prester John during like the Opium Wars episode when we were explaining the first entry of how like the, white people came over to Asia.
Yeah, it definitely could have been somewhere in there.
A couple times.
But he pops up in these places, so of course he's going to have this fountain of youth in this mythical area. The fountain of youth becomes kind of what Europeans strive for as far as in all of their legends for these things. And sometimes it gets attributed in fanatical or fantastical ways. Sometimes it gets attributed to people just basically out of having a grudge against them. And I think 1513, Juan Ponce de Leon is probably like a prime example of that, because as soon as you hear the name, what's the first thing you think of?
Fountain of Youth.
Yeah.
But like the literal version, but you think about it from a standpoint of Central America, Caribbean, tropical jungle, all that kind of stuff.
And Ponce de Leon got a trip over to, I believe it was Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic, one or the other.
He goes over, I think,
with Columbus.
Yeah, he originally went with the second voyage of Columbus. He wasn't with the first voyage. So then they go over. Ponce de Leon is supposed to be, or I guess I could just call him Mr. de Leon. So Leon is supposed to be the governor of either he might be the governor of, at that point, the
I think he was the DR. I think you're right.
Okay, but that was no, that's not Hispaniola now. What was Hispaniola?
Cuba, I believe, wasn't it?
Okay. So
shit.
Then
Haiti?
A Caribbean island.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've been there.
So he comes over with Columbus's second voyage to an unnamed Caribbean island. He becomes governor of that, but then gets deposed by Columbus's son. He then is like, okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sail north because there's a bunch more islands out there that I can be the governor of, and he gets the king's blessing.
Well, yeah, King Ferdinand is all about this because Juan Ponce was a pretty important figure for them over there, and he wants to try to put the people that are loyal to him in these leadership positions, these presidential positions, to try to keep the area for the kingdom or for the Spanish crown.
Yes, and as they're interacting also with, the natives of Central America and South America and those areas, again, they're fucking just killing everyone and taking all their gold and everything, but they're also hearing stories and legends and things like that. So kind of through, different cultures are going to have different variations and everything like that. But Ponce ends up getting a whiff that there might be a fountain of youth somewhere in the area.
Benini, I believe is what it was.
Bimini,
Benini, yeah, whatever.
Bellini, Peach, Bimini.
It could have been something over there.
Well, there's a Bimini top, isn't there?
Yeah, on boats.
Yeah. So he hears legend of a place called Bimini.
Is that where that's from? It's gotta be.
I guess.
That's not a word I've heard anywhere else.
But go ahead.
The interesting thing about these stories about Bimini or Benini being the place where this fountain of youth is these stories have to be coming down from somewhere because Juan Ponce is going up north to try to find these areas.
Yeah, and as he goes to these individual islands, he's meeting the natives and everything. And I don't know how the topic comes up. So either because that's not information if you're native of being like, oh, hey, yeah, there's this river that makes people young forever. As you're being told this by a 50-year-old,
Spanish
tribal chief
man.
or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And this has got to be something, and I want to say that the king was aware of the myth of the Fountain of Youth, that it was possible that it was over in the Caribbean, and the information from Ponce de Leon and stuff that I was listening to this week is yeah, he gets tied to that, but that wasn't his goal. He was really just trying to be governor. I get it, but if you're also sailing certain places because you think there's a Fountain of Youth there, that's kind of a goal of yours as well.
But at the same time, all of these accounts that he's getting from these tribal chiefs, everything is a translation.
Yes, but he's got to be broaching the subject of, is there a water source that make men young forever? How would that even get brought up?
I think that's attributed more to the people that wrote about Juan Ponce. Because we'll talk about kind of how that all gets connected after his voyages are done. But as he's heading up to Bimini, Benini to look for these places, the reports that they're getting from the north is that there's something up there. He ends up being attributed with finding Florida, which he believes is an island, which is insane just because they circumnavigated around basically the tip of Florida into the Keys.
And Bimini isn't this is just a word they're hearing.
Yeah.
It's a place that's kind of a place of myth for these people where the natives are like, oh yeah, you'll totally find a Fountain of Youth up there. Part of me also thinks that they end up landing. They're like, we got to get these fucking white guys out of here. Just tell them we don't have anything that they want, but we know where the stuff they want is, and it's away from here. So he comes back and he's like, do you have any gold? And they're like, no, we don't have any gold. He's like, do you guys have a Fountain of Youth? He's like, I don't have a Fountain of Youth, but you know who does have gold and a Fountain of Youth is this place called Bimini. He's like, where's it at? He's like, that way. And so he's searching for this unknown island. No one's is he going to get there and just be like, hey, is this Bimini? And they're like, oh yeah, you're in the right place. Ends up finding his way to the east coast of Florida. Not sure how far up he ends up going.
There's differing stories. And again, it's based upon One of them was based upon the actual ship's log that he was able to get his hands on years after the voyages had already taken place. The other one was somebody who was using that guy's information to then write his own. So third-hand source at that point.
And I get why he thought it was an island. Unless you can confirm and keep going north and north and north. We ran into this with like the Henry Hudson episode where you're just trying to figure out if something you can get around something. After a while, he's like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and sail the other direction around the other part of the island and see what's there. He ends up sailing around the southern tip, ends up going up the western coast of Florida. I think he gets as far as St. Augustine, right? That was the whole point. It was called St. Augustine.
Yeah, I thought St. Augustine was on the inside or the outside, but maybe you're right.
It's not St. Petersburg. I want to say it's St. Augustine. It's Saint something.
Yeah.
But anyway, and he's also under the impression, at what point do you think he's like, this ain't Bimini?
So I don't think he was ever looking for any of this stuff. I think the orders that came down from Ferdinand were to go take this area over. I think the orders came from Ferdinand to go take this area over because they already knew about it, because there had already been landings in Florida for slave raids. So they already knew that it existed. He didn't just go up there and find Bimini.
Yeah, like see how big it is or something.
Yeah, he was showing up there to basically take over, to be governor of this new territory that Spain wanted. So, I mean, as they're circumnavigating, as they're going through and doing the cartography, is that drawing? Yeah. All around the areas, I'm sure that they're making inland roads to go in and explore some of these areas. But I don't think they're spending a whole hell of a lot of time on land. Because to think about going from the East Coast, kind of halfway up Florida, all the way around to in the Gulf of Mexico and to like the Tampa area, that's a long voyage.
No, it is. Part of me also thinks that he's like, okay, I got kicked out of whatever nameless island or unnamed island it was by Columbus as kid. I then got made governor of Puerto Rico. I think it was when he was made governor of Puerto Rico. He's like, but if I can find a place further to the north, then I'll be safe from getting replaced because no one's going to want to come up here.
Eventually, we're going to stop going up. Ponce ends up making 2 trips to basically in and around Florida. He goes back down to, I believe it's Puerto Rico, gives his report. Ferdinand asks for him to come back to Spain. He goes back and talks to Spain. Ferdinand says, I give you my blessing to go back for a second voyage as long as you finance it yourself, you find the men yourself. It basically lays out just everything. It's like, if you get there, it's kind of the Columbus deal.
Yeah.
If you get there, you become the king of everything there. You're still subject, the governor of everything there. You're entitled to 1/10 of whatever the crown pulls from there. So this is a pretty great deal. As he heads back, he comes back with basically his privateers at that point in time and his own ships and everything that he's paid for. And the, contract that he signs with Ferdinand is that any tribes that he's running into, any Native Americans that he's running into, he is basically to read this script of who their new king is, who their new religion is, who God is to them.
So it's the same thing like Lewis and Clark were doing.
Yeah. And then he's giving them the chance. He says, if they agree to convert to our religion, to convert to Catholicism, then they're fine. They can stay. They'll be productive members. If they don't, you're allowed to enslave them and then send them back here. Or you're allowed to massacre them. There's points in time where Ferdinand's like, show up, read it to them. If everybody's looking at you like they don't understand it because you're speaking Spanish, a language that they've never heard before.
Then you have a captured translator.
Yeah. Well, and even then, I mean, if you're running into different tribes that have different dialects and speak differently, you're not going and getting a slave to then take him back and teach him Spanish to bring him back over there. Well, you're going to have to.
That's pretty valuable to have.
But if everybody speaks something different, every tribe that you run into, you're not going to have somebody that speaks that language. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you'd rather have something rather than nothing.
So they could probably try and work their way around.
Yeah.
But it's going to take a while for this big, long declaration that's being read about.
There's going to be a lot
Catholic
of misunderstanding.
Jesus.
There's also going to be a lot of like, hey, you're just kind of springing this on us. This isn't cool. And they're going to take that as some type of hostility toward it.
Something that's not going to end up well. are not going to end up good for the natives.
Yeah.
So these 3 ships and 200 men set out again from, I believe it was the western portion in the Gulf of Mexico, back over to Spain to present his findings. Well, the whole reason that they start to talk about the search for the Fountain of Youth is because these accounts come from these guys that were never on the ship. They were just basically secondhand stories that were being told of what Ponce de Leon was looking at. And of course, just as like when we were talking about Columbus's son coming over and taking over his governorship, there were people that the crown had sent up and around Florida to kind of keep an eye on him and make sure that he wasn't keeping anything for himself.
Yeah.
Basically keeping him on the straight and narrow to make sure that he was following what King Ferdinand wanted to do. One of these guys that he runs into problems with was a guy named Gonzalo Fernandez de Oliveto y Valdez. And he suggested that Ponce was looking for the Fountain of Youth to cure his impotence.
Would it be crazy if this whole Fountain of Youth thing came about just because, like, they were, like, in a bar or something like this and they're getting into just, like, a verbal altercation? And he's like, yeah, well, I hear you're looking for, like, a fountain that can make you young again because your dick doesn't work. And everyone's like, oh, shit. And it was such a good burn that it spread like wildfire. Tale of this burn that, you know, Ponce de Leon is looking for the Fountain of Youth because his dick doesn't work. Over time in the telephone game, dick doesn't work, gets dropped off, and it was just Ponce de Leon's looking for the Fountain of Youth.
Brother, you just described what happened, basically. Because Valdez was a close friend of Columbus's son and had quite a few issues with Ponce. And Ponce wasn't impotent. Ponce had like 4 kids with his wife, and then
I don't see no kids.
on his second voyage back to Florida, he brought his consort with him. So he wasn't trying.
She's not at the bar, though.
He wasn't trying to cure his bad dick, but at the same time, Valdez had an axe to grind with him because he went and found Florida, and Columbus's son wasn't a big fan of that. So they were just basically slandering him in these writings. He doesn't really have a way to defend himself.
Makes for a fantastic story, though.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And technically, even though he didn't find the Fountain of Youth, he found a time machine.
Oh, that's right.
He found the Gulf Stream. And that's actually, to say that he's attributed with finding Florida sounds big, but if they had already found it before for slaving missions, it was already founded. But the Gulf Stream was able to cut down a trip from the New World back to Spain in half. So if that voyage took 2 months, getting into the Gulf Stream and being pushed by those waters coming out of the Gulf, it was speeding them up to the point to where it was taking a month instead of 2 months to get back.
That's crazy.
Which, you're stealing time. He's getting a month of his life that would have been dedicated to sailing back.
So was it a metaphorical fountain of youth because it saved time?
Potentially, but also something that I heard on another podcast that I never thought about this before, and I forgot which podcast. The guy was great. Just listening to him talk about it. But if you think about it, Florida is kind of like a fountain of youth because...
Oh, yeah. Like I've had that thought before because who moves down to Florida?
And not to mention, in Orlando, Florida, everybody goes back to Disney World to be a kid again.
Yeah.
To basically re-explore your youth. So Florida kind of holds this as you retire and you want to try to elongate your life. You're going to move to a warmer climate to really enjoy it.
Say no more. Seinfeld's parents moved down there. They start doing all kinds of crazy stuff that younger people would do.
And then the Costanzas
moved down. Yeah. Del Boca Vista. Is that what it's called?
I think so. Yeah. And the Cadillac that shows up down. Oh, it's just fantastic. Those storylines down there. Catholicism has some interesting, we'll call them stories. I'm going to call them myths. I'm going to say flat out now, after reading through these and kind of looking at what came about from this, it seems like this is slander, but we talked about myths before, so I guess slander can still be a myth as well. We just talked about Juan Ponce and the Fountain of Youth for his bad dick.
1492, Pope Transfusion the First. That wasn't his real name, but you'll see it's a pretty apt name.
He was Pope Innocent VIII.
Pope Innocent VIII. Not so innocent.
No, not so innocent. He's said to have been given the first attempt at a blood transfusion in history. Not a typical way to give a blood transfusion. This feels like something that we probably should have known back then. Blood ran in the veins, and he was drinking the blood from 3 young boys.
So he has a stroke. Nature's maybe telling you something at that point back then.
It's time.
It's time. So in order to keep him alive, like you said, they need the blood of 3. I wrote 3 young men because that's what I saw. And then in another article, it told the name. So I had to cross it out and put boys because these are 10-year-olds.
Oh, boy.
3 10-year-olds are paid a ducat each to basically serve as the blood bank for this pope. And like you said, this is not at a time when they understand the intravenous nature of the flow of blood through the body. That does not come until much later. So they are basically bloodletting these kids and having the Pope drink the blood of these 10-year-old kids. That's vampirism.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely probably the right way to describe it.
I don't know how else to, except with vampires it works. With this, it doesn't.
Vampires understood what they were doing. The fact that this is like an Always Sunny episode, like, well, how do we get the blood inside of his body?
How do you get food inside your body?
Have him drink it? Yeah.
How do you get beer inside your body?
It's how we get everything else in there. He's either going to poop it out or he's going to drink it in.
So an oral transfusion of just constantly drinking blood. What ends up happening? What comes of this?
Well, first off, the worst part is that 3 young boys end up dying. Second was it didn't work.
Surprise.
Yeah, there was no way that it was ever going to work. Pope Innocent VIII, Pope Not So Innocent VIII, ends up dying weeks after.
You could call him Transfucius.
Supposedly this comes about because the doctor that he had was Jewish, and this was a Jew stealing blood kind of Catholic.
Oh, that's what
story.
They blame it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what it comes out from. The stroke is what they believe actually killed him. So maybe the story isn't as real as it was just a chance to throw some shade at somebody else.
You mean drinking just blood does not sustain you?
Yeah, it's odd that it didn't work that way. Pope Clement VII. This one I think has a little bit more behind it, but at the same time, it's definitely still probably not true. He was looking for a way to extend his life. This was, I believe, like right after Innocent too. Like there not a lot of time between these two guys. So he realized that the blood wasn't going to work. They knew that gold was the most beautiful.
I need more boys.
Maybe that was it. Maybe all the boys were going to charge him 2 ducats instead of 1. And they're like, yeah, it's too rich for our blood. Let's go for gold. Pope Clement VII was said to have gone through and drank a gold mixture, whether that be some kind of gold flake in a drink. I hope that it's not molten gold that he's trying to drink, because I feel like they didn't understand that you can't drink blood, but they should understand you can't drink molten metal, right?
Yeah, I had the same question, but in relation to actually another person who tries this. So I believe that this could have happened because there was an explanation for how. I was like, gold has to be at a certain temperature to be in liquid form. You drink that, it's going to kill you. So in what capacity were they drinking this gold? What I read, and I'm not sure if it's the same for the Pope because this happens a little bit further in the future, but it was gold chloride or something like that.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if that's what happens when you were to, dissolve gold in some type of I
wonder if it's the same thing as colloidal silver, if you can do colloidal gold. Potentially. But either way, they said that this most likely, again, didn't happen. This was just basically somebody who was trying to slander the church by saying that the Catholic Church is so in love with money and fortune and riches and power that they were willing to try to drink gold to stay alive forever. But there again, Philosopher's Stone enters the picture, and you start to think about it. If the Philosopher's Stone can turn a base metal into gold, does then gold hold that immortality? Mm-hmm. Like it's all very kind of intertwined.
Yeah.
Because again, in the 1400s, we're still talking about alchemy and the sciences still being pretty enmeshed with religion.
Mm-hmm. Here, drink this. Why is it shiny? Make you live forever.
Yeah, it'll make your skin shine. It'll make it radiant. It'll clear out all those wrinkles.
Okay, I got some stuff before you got the date up there.
Excellent.
All right, so there were instances. Let's bump it down to France for a little bit. So in France, there was this fad in the 16th century of drinking gold as an anti-aging thing. So this was actually kind of started by this woman named Diane de Poitiers, and she was the mistress of King Henry II of France.
Nice.
Now, this is where the gold chloride comes into play. And she had a few different people doing it, but she was the one that did it the most. Now, they found her body, I want to say, like 80 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. And even testing out the level of gold in her hair that was left was 500 times the normal level of gold found. And I don't know what the normal level of gold is. I don't know why there would be a level of gold even in your hair. But 500 times that, even if it's small, is like she was drinking a lot of fucking gold.
Yeah.
And because she was the mistress, she had access to it. So again, this is a situation where, I don't know, physicians in the court or something like that. Or I also don't know if this is actually Henry's wife is just like, give this bitch, just have her drink a bunch of metal.
That's how she's trying to sneak the treasure out, as she's stealing from Henry, is she's just slowly swallowing like small pieces of gold to try to get it out.
They were talking to, because they were like presenting this information to physicians that were doing the study on it and everything. They're like, well, in addition to like the high level of gold and everything like that, it would actually be in your shit as well. So you'd be just dumping out this extremely valuable poop.
You do an autopsy on that body to check the stomach, right? I mean, if she was found that recently, gold's gotten much more valuable.
Yeah, to see if you can find little flakes, like panning for gold in the corpse.
Or do you cremate her and hope that all that gold that's in her hair will still be sitting there afterwards?
Yeah, it won't. It won't.
Not worth it, probably, at that point. What else you got?
Before that, nothing. We're getting a little more recent. I got stuff after the 20s that you got up there.
Okay. June 12th, 1920. This guy's really jumped up on my historically favorite
This is your
people.
new favorite person.
It's incredible. And this is one of those things where when I was reading about him, it's so fantastical. There's no way that it was real, but it's real. There's medical papers written about this guy. June 12th, 1920, a ethnically Russian French surgeon named Sergei Voronov completes the first transplantation of a monkey gland into a human. He was taking thin slices of monkey testicles from chimps and baboons, and he was implanting them inside patients' scrotums. Now, the reason that he went to monkeys and chimps was because he was originally trying to do this with people that had been
Cadavers?
Executed in prison.
So cadavers, basically.
Yeah. His pitch was that the potential effects of the surgery, and I'm not going to cover everything for him because this guy, I think you guys know what's going to happen with him. The potential effects of the surgery were improved sex drive. He said it wasn't necessarily an aphrodisiac, but you might see a good increase in your sex drive.
Side effects may include being horny.
He had this belief that these thin slices of monkey testicles were thin enough that they would then, as they're floating around in the scrotum, adhere to the men's testicles.
These were just free-floating pieces of tissue that were in there. They weren't even, like, grafted onto, like, someone's balls.
No, he did the grafting for other glands. But, yeah, he believed that they would just basically enmesh themselves with the testicles. So, again, that's where the sex drive comes from. These next couple, I gotta wonder, and hopefully you have a better answer for these.
Okay, hold on. Whoa.
Okay.
We're not moving on from this monkey testicle skin inside a human testicle sac. Okay, so prior to this, he was using cadaver balls or trying to anyway. After that, is he in Russia or France at this point? France, okay.
He's in what would be called a normal society in 1920. Okay. This is post-World War I, mind you.
Yeah. So this guy has to have a supply of monkeys. That's a whole other thing to unpack.
It's a whole other bottle.
We're going to revisit this guy in a bonus episode.
Yeah.
I'm going to try not to fixate too much on this. We got other stuff to cover. Okay. So he has to have a monkey guy. He is then taking dead monkeys, I'm assuming. So these monkeys are having to be killed because I don't see a live monkey letting you cut open and taking shavings off its testicles.
True.
So he's killing the monkeys, taking the tissue, which I'm just trying to figure out now, what is his method for like doing the thin strips off the monkey balls? And then and how do you know where the good monkey ball meat is? Is there a specific spot that's that's better than the other, like white meat and dark meat?
Yep.
He's then taking a live human subject. He is cutting open the scrotum, and all he's doing is just like, bloop, and he just just drops it on in there. Like, you open up the top of the grocery sack while you're trick-or-treating, they just drop the candy in, and then he just sews it or stitches it up, and you're just good to plow. Walking around with essentially what's going to become a dead piece of flesh inside your body.
Yep.
Okay, but I just want to make sure I had...
No, you painted a good accurate portrayal
make sure
of what
I was
this
understanding that.
Yeah. So sex drive's going to make sense. A better memory. What part of the monkey ball flesh is going to help your memory out?
Listen here. I have the memory of both an adult man and a small dead monkey, and a portion of a small dead monkey.
Yeah, you don't even know what the chimp looked like that you're getting the transfusion from.
It's like when they say, like, twins in the room, one absorbs the other and gains. Doesn't Dwight say that? He was originally a twin, but he absorbed the other one and got his power.
He ate it and got his power.
So he has the power of a grown man and a tiny fetus.
Well, if you have all that power from, the monkey testicle, it's also
Surge isn't done?
No.
Right.
Oh, no.
More surge.
The ability to work longer hours. So I don't know if it's testosterone or what, but it's giving you the ability to work harder.
Because you can't sleep because you're in so much pain because there's a dead piece of skin or whatever inside your body.
So instead of trying to sleep, you just go work more.
Yeah, you got to work it off.
You got to pay for the surgery to get the monkey testicle pulled out of you. No longer need to use glasses due to the improvement of all of the muscles around your eyes. There's not many things that are further away.
Okay. I'm not totally sold on this whole monkey testicle tissue idea, but you've said a lot of good things so far. Let's keep it going.
Well, and you're not the only guy that's seeing this, because the final thing is that it's said to prolong life. And in 1923, 3 years after this first successful surgery, 700 of the world's leading surgeons met at this thing called the International Congress of Surgeons in England and applauded the success of Voronoff's work in the rejuvenation of old men.
Sit down, folks. Okay. Has he started doing anything else, or is he still just doing monkey balls in your balls?
He is grafting, it's not the pituitary gland. Oh, he's taking monkey thyroid glands and he's grafting them into human thyroid glands that have stopped producing.
How do they know they've stopped producing?
Hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism. Okay. I'm assuming they had some understanding.
Okay. So he's cutting open people, getting access to where their thyroid gland is.
I want to say it's like bottom of the neck.
Okay. He's then taking the one he removed from the monkey. This guy's got a crazy monkey guy. This guy's putting this dude's kids like through school. And he's taking those and just putting them on and then just stitching them right in there.
Stitching, cauterizing, I'm not exactly sure.
Because you're not rerouting any plumbing. You're just kind of mash it in there, and then the body's a miracle. It'll just absorb this monkey gland and then just start using the monkey gland, right? And this whole Congress of surgeons, 700 of the world's leading surgeons, are just like, bravo, sir. Bravo.
I've never felt further away from 1920 in my entire life.
I've never felt further away from reality in my life.
Well, and of course, eventually, the world finds out as people are still dying at a young age after the testicle surgery and
Of sepsis or whatever type of bacteria or rot that's spreading throughout your body.
Also, I was looking into this because it's not weird nowadays to hear somebody that has like a pig valve in their heart. I mean, it's still weird. We're still in the experimental stages because I think the one guy that they've done it to recently was a death row inmate.
I get your point that it's a foreign animal's part inside your body, but despite that commonality, these are still vastly different
miles
things.
apart. Those are life-saving measures, not life-prolonging measures. So I could see that, but there's also, as I was looking it up, there are like inherent primate diseases.
Isn't that fucking bonkers that we have enough genetic similarity to a pig that our body can actually, because it's not just like you're putting it over and it just, the body actually begins supplying with blood and
it's not a long-term fix, but we have done these things that have worked for a certain amount of time.
This is going to make making bacon tomorrow an existential situation.
Pigs are smarter than you give them credit for. But eventually it does fall out of favor as people are dying because you can't say that you're prolonging life when the people are still dropping dead.
Medicine is advancing while he's just sewing in animal parts.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's probably a time after the war or during the war, actually it'd be after the war, after World War I, where they're like, hey, we've seen some shit on the battlefield. This guy's doing some things that aren't.
Everyone just came home and figured out what he was doing. He had had free reign for the last few years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if Voronoff definitely takes the cake for the weirdest thing I think of this episode. Crypto.
No. Hold on.
Oh.
Can't skip over World War II.
Okay.
Can't skip over, again, have a podcast without talking about World War II.
Good point.
So this is where we're going to talk about the Holy Grail. So long story short on the Holy Grail, the myth of the Grail is that it was the cup that Jesus had used during the Last Supper, and it was also the cup that was used to catch the blood of Christ by a dude named Joseph of Arimathea. Weird story about this dude, Joseph. Apparently he was this guy who was not, he wasn't Jewish. He was posing to be Christian, but he was really actually he was like a Jesus fan. And he was actually a rich dude and somehow got a hold of this cup and got some of the blood from Jesus in it. So they're saying the combination of both the sacramental wine and the blood of Jesus is what gives this cup its power. Now, in Arthurian legend, the Grail was a big thing in the legend of King Arthur. At this point, it had been said that because of its ties to Christ and everything, that it grants immortality, and that one of his knights, I believe it was Sir Galahad, was so pure of heart that he was able to, I guess, partake of it or something like that. Not a lot about Sir Galahad after that, as far as like future, as far as being past Arthurian legend. Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe he disappeared and he's still alive.
They're saying this could also be based essentially on like a Celtic myth of which there was a cauldron of life. So you just go with what you know. We don't have cups. We have cauldrons that we make our stew in, but there's a cauldron that will actually give you everlasting life. Which, what is that? You go from ambrosia with the Greeks to a hearty goat stew or like a hearty stew.
It was colder there. They don't know about ambrosia salad in a cold area.
The stew of life. Now, where this also comes into play is in one of the greatest cinematic masterpieces of all time, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
The Epic of Indiana Jones.
The Epic of Indiana Jones and Henry Jones Sr. So with that, it's, the Nazis are trying to hunt down the Holy Grail in order to basically have the Third Reich be immortal and all that. It's not super far from that. I don't necessarily know in what capacity they sent people to look for that, but Heinrich Himmler was a huge believer in the Holy Grail and had actually put out some feelers. Like when they were going into areas and taking over that had biblical significance and everything, he would be sending people in to be like, look for historical relics, things like that. So, I mean, and the legend about the Holy Grail has all of these different, tellings of it. Some of them say that, you could drink it once and you would be good to go. One of them is that you would have to continually, drink it periodically. Some had that you couldn't leave the area where the Grail was. Some said it would just heal wounds. So there's all these different tellings of it, but it was a huge focal point for like Arthurian legend.
And then Himmlerian legend as well.
And Himmlerian legend, if you want to call it that as well.
There's nothing that I would put past the Nazis. So I definitely think there is a little bit of something there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hitler was kind of into some like occultish type shit. Listen, if you're high that much of the time, you're going to have some people telling you about like, oh, did you like, he was into Norse mythology and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he was definitely like, oh yeah, it's no skin off my teeth. Go ahead and send a squad of guys, look for the Holy Grail. That'd be awesome to have.
All it took was just a couple nights at the Eagle's Nest.
Well, and thank God Indiana was there to actually stop them from getting a hold of that. Could have been a much different situation we're living in.
Yeah, it changes the outlook of the world if Indiana Jones doesn't stop them from gaining access, for sure. That's so fun. Like, we were talking about it last night, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Iliad, the Odyssey, all of those kinds of things were those oral traditions that were finally written down. Society's advanced enough that we have movies and these full-blown books and different things like that are fictionalized, but also fictionalized off of enough reality that they can kind of be passed along that way. In 1,000 years, if somebody is telling Indiana Jones stories as if they were legend.
Well, and it just goes to show this is something that, because it's never been attained, it's always the prize at the end of the road. You have, what's one of the most appealing things about vampires? Is that they're able to live forever. They're immortal. We have television shows that deal with this. 90s gave you Highlander, the movie series, where you had a race of immortals that were essentially fighting and trying to kill each other and chop off each other's heads so they could absorb their power and there can be only one. And that was, again, in a Hollywood way, quest for immortality. You even have it in the way that it's tempting and shows you the folly of man, go into Tolkien. And part of the myth about, Middle Earth and all that in some of the earlier ages, you have the men of Numenor who are granted extended life to live for up to 300 years, but they're seduced to believe that the gods are holding out on them and that they should be able to take their immortality, and they go try to take it from the gods in order to destroy in the process. So it's always, again, it's this carrot that's dangled of being like, people can always believe that. That's why it's entertaining. People can wrap their heads around being like, I know why they're going after this. I see how appealing the thought of living forever is.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's all sorts of just different ways that people have gone about it, and talking about going out and finding the Fountain of Youth or finding the Elixir of Life or creating the Philosopher's Stone. That's all one thing. When you start to actually dip your toes into science, though.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, too, is fiction is becoming more sought after through the possibilities of reality at this point. Like you were talking about earlier, Harry Potter, the whole point of the first movie is Voldemort's trying to get it so he can become immortal and he can get his body back. One thing I forgot to mention, kind of dipping out of the fiction realm, is there was a religious cult in the 1920s. It was led by this guy named James Schaefer. He believed that aging was caused by diseases, which were in turn caused by destructive thoughts. This guy also thought that he was able to essentially not have those thoughts, therefore he would never get disease. And he could also dematerialize anything in front of him, which is basically just turning it into atoms, scattering, like Dr. Manhattan style. This guy bought like an old hotel or a mansion, moved a bunch of his followers there, and they were given, by these people who couldn't take care of it, a 3-month-old baby girl. He believed that if he was able to essentially curate this child's life and keep it away from any destructive thoughts, the child would never have disease and would be the first person to live forever. Thankfully, this guy went bankrupt and lost all his money a very short time later. The baby was returned to the parents, which I'm not sure how good that was because they couldn't afford to take care of her. And if your parents were willing to give you to a cult to begin with, I don't know how good of an option going back to them is.
Not a great home.
But, there's various ways. Like this guy was not even like, well, I'm going to be immortal. He's like, no, I'm going to make this child immortal.
Oh, man. The wild lengths that people take to do this.
And again, it's something now that's becoming maybe not immortality, but longevity of life, which is the first step on the road to that, is now becoming a scientific reality.
Yeah, and we have a million different ways to try and do this. It's not necessarily about, and we'll talk later on about things that people are doing, namely Brian Johnson, to try to extend his life, but there's also the ability to try to preserve yourself for a future date when potentially a terminal illness that you have has a cure, to where then you can be reanimated and then cured to continue to live.
It's the age-old adage of taking a nap long enough that by the time you wake up, any problems that you might have had at that time, science has solved those problems and then some.
Yeah.
It's the Walt Disney treatment.
Are we on our way into human popsicles?
Yes.
Cryopreservation. The first cryopreservation, I was very surprised at this date, of a frozen sperm was proved successful in 1954. They had a successful insemination of 3 women. In 1954, they had figured out how to freeze sperm, hold it for an extended period of time, and then get it to work again.
I have a theory. Probably no merit behind it, but it seems like it might be possible.
After World War II, they're like, we got to figure out how to try to keep these people living on. Their legacy, their spunk.
I think in the sense of you're on it, that it was a World War II related thing. Populations were decimated.
Oh.
A lot of young men were killed. They lost a breeding pool. And so being able to, in a way, have the same guy essentially be able to provide for 5 or however many women would help you kind of rebuild that population. The ability to do it, I think, also branches out of that, because I'm guessing some type of like liquid nitrogen, something that was able to, flash freeze it, whatever process they go through. I'm guessing there had to be something that came about during World War I, the development of that, the use of liquid nitrogen, the knowledge based on what you could use it for, which led into something like this.
Yeah.
War is always the great innovator as far as advancements in technology, all fields of it.
And then they were trying to figure out how to use something from war to preserve the remnants of war, almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. 1966, first human body is frozen. It had been embalmed previously for 2 months, so we're not talking about a freshly dead person that was then frozen. But proof of concept.
Yeah, but how? Okay, if it's already dead, it was embalmed, but at the same time, what are they counting as frozen? Are they just throwing it in the freezer and being like, and it's frozen now? Because it's already dead. It's not like...
I think this is where they were using the liquid nitrogen.
Okay.
In order to do it. And there's certain...
So it's not just leaving it in the deep freeze. They're trying to do it in a method in which maybe they can then do it to living tissue in order to preserve it at some point.
And there's a kind of a trial and error, which is why I'm assuming they use the cadaver on this. They've come up with... They're called... I forgot to write the word down. It's basically like a cryoprotector, and it's something that's put on the body to stop it from crystallizing. So ice crystals being attached to it, because that will destroy tissue, faster than anything.
There's also something that has to be drank, that has to flush through your system to be able to do the same thing from the inside. Because those are your vitals and everything. So there's something you have to drink that prevents it, like you said, from crystallizing or becoming brittle.
You got to figure all that stuff out, because if you're going to reanimate somebody and bring them back to life.
How do you test that shit, dude? You're pumping shit into a lot of animals.
Oh yeah, mice were definitely cryoed many times over, I'm sure, before they really launched this.
Those poor monkeys.
James Bedford was frozen 2 hours after his death due to a cardiorespiratory arrest. He had also been suffering. This was secondary to the cancer that had metastasized inside his body. He's actually still preserved to this day. He's the only body that was preserved previous to 1974 that's still frozen. It's a pretty long time to be frozen.
So I get that this is, again, I'm wondering what they consider in the field of like cryopreservation, cryonics, whatnot, what preserved means.
So cryonics preserves bodies by basically storing them in liquid nitrogen.
Okay.
So instead of just, painting a coat on them, throwing it on them, whatever.
This is Demolition Man.
Your body's actually, I was thinking more Austin Powers, but yeah.
No, that's how they freeze him in Demolition Man.
Yeah.
But then there's that badass scene where, oh my God, what's his name in there? No.
I haven't seen Demolition Man.
You have
20 years.
Okay.
I saw it when I was a kid.
The scene where he freezes Wesley Snipes and then kicks him and he shatters into ice. John Spartan is his name, is Stallone's name in that. And that's where Taco Bell's the only restaurant that was left after the fast food wars.
I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah. Underrated movie.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch it.
Which deals a lot with freezing, cryogenics, being able to preserve, people.
Hot at the time, yeah.
Very relevant sidebar there.
So the liquid nitrogen would hold them at a temperature below negative 130 degrees Celsius. It could get down to about negative 170, which our equivalent in Fahrenheit is negative 320.8 degrees Fahrenheit. So very, very, very deep freeze.
On the flip side of that, or that's very science-based, we then have something a little more interesting going on over in Russia. March 2013. There was a guy, I want to say he might have taught at a college or some type of teacher. And that's how he got access to this stuff. Mm-hmm. He had seen enough times superheroes getting their powers through exposure to radiation. Tale as old as time. Spider-Man gets bit by a radioactive spider. Hulk gets hit by, gamma rays. Instant superpowers. How can this thing go wrong? So this guy is able, through his contacts, I believe at the school he taught at, able to procure a pretty decent amount of radioactive material. Of course, he visited Chernobyl. Got to do that if you want to get that sweet, sweet radiation.
Absolutely.
Only did it once, apparently, though. So maybe he had this stuff at home, so he could just be surrounded by it and everything. And the Russian radioactive man ends up getting found out because he would bring his friends and other people around this radioactive material that he just had in his house that he was just chilling out with.
What a crazy Russian.
He might still be alive. I'm not sure if he's still alive. You got to mention, and his risk for cancer was quite a bit higher.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, probably a good chance he's not still alive.
Or he did develop superpowers, and he's just in his superhero persona now.
Could be. Absolutely could be.
Isn't that the name of the superhero from The Simpsons? Thanks, Radioactive Man. The superhero of the nuclear power plant in town.
It's interesting because I believe there's 4 actively running cryogenics companies that are holding these bodies. 3 of them are in the United States. 1 of them's in Russia.
Perfect.
So, yeah, right in there again.
I got another one.
Okay.
Anatoly Bruchov, 2009. They find ancient bacteria found in Siberian ice that they date back roughly to be 3.5 million years old. The bacteria is still alive. So after doing some research, from 2009 up to 2013, this guy is full comic book as far as the testing isn't going fast enough. I'm going to go ahead and test it on myself. This guy injects himself with a collection of this bacteria that they were able to kind of synthesize and everything. And crazily enough, he'd only tested it on mice and I want to say maybe some insects and then a smaller, all positive results. He injects himself with it. Dude is thriving.
Really?
Says he's never felt better.
Really?
Yes.
No way.
Yeah. But at the same time, who knows what that could be placebo effect. The bacteria could have died as soon as it got in its body. Who knows? But we do have a successful example of using ancient bacteria to possibly create a form of longevity within this man. Only time will tell.
It would be pretty nuts if our immune system was still able to fight a bacteria that old. Like if it was still imprinted.
Or if it was somehow that bacteria was like, had like a symbiotic relationship with our bodies now. Like it didn't back then, but somehow with our bodies now, it's just like, oh, I like it here. This is nice. I'm going to keep this thing alive longer. Oh, that's what it's doing. It's spreading throughout his body, is making him feel good. This bacteria is going to form into something, and then we're going to get a Last of Us situation where fungus and bacteria kill us all.
Isn't it mushrooms?
It's fungus, yeah. It's cordyceps is what happens in Last of Us, yeah.
Very interesting. I forgot. As of 2014, there have been around 250 people, small number, but at the same time, to go through this process seems like kind of a big number, that have been cryogenically frozen in the United States. The cost varies wildly, and I can't imagine. This has to feel like a Motel 6 in the W type situation. It can cost between $80,000 to $200,000. And I don't know if that's continued treatment in perpetuity when you're talking about $200,000.
It's where you're frozen at. You get different packages. Do you want to be in the good suites, the good frozen suites? You got to go ahead and pay a little bit more.
Yeah, there has to be upkeep, right?
We're either going to keep you in the lab or we have a storage shed out back.
It never gets any light.
Yeah.
Somebody goes in there just to make sure everybody's still frozen.
There's some generators attached to it, but I mean, these things don't run forever.
Yeah, there's been a couple people that have melted. But yeah, you'll probably
We still have an excellent success rate. One of those places is called, I want to say it is called BioViva. Oh, no, sorry. Alcor. Alcor currently has 160 of those people on ice with another 1,500 lined up that have yet to need to be frozen. So they're still living.
Okay.
Not like the queue is 150 dead bodies. No.
I was going to say.
No. They've got 160 people cryogenically frozen, and they have a list of 1,500 people that are just waiting to kick the bucket and go on ice.
Maybe one of the craziest things that I saw talking about just the financing of this is people will actually take out life insurance policies to the equivalent amount of the level they want to be frozen at and how they want to be kept. So after they pass away, they use the life insurance policy must be pre-signed over, or maybe it's in the will, to these cryogenics labs to hold these people. So they're taking out life insurance policies for when they die, and instead of giving that to the family,
with the intention to then come back to life at some point.
Yeah.
Long enough to where the statute of limitations for insurance fraud claims run out?
That's what I was going to say. Do you just get slapped with a bill from life insurance afterwards that you have to repay this because you're actually not dead?
Part of the stipulation with the company, you're like, I'm going to need you to wait. They're like, so you want us just to wait till medical advances are enough to cure the disease that you have? It's like, well, yes and no. Wait, obviously, for that. But if the insurance company that I currently got the payout from is still in business and has not dissolved, I'm going to need you to wait till that thing has run its course and they're no longer in business. Unfreeze me at that point.
If you can figure this out in 20 years, maybe wait an extra 5, there's a statute of limitations I'm trying to outrun here. Like it's just a crazy thought to think that you could use life insurance for that. I don't remember. We had to have talked about it during the Walt Disney episode because I know that would be a dumb question that I would ask. He actually, for all the rumors that he was frozen, isn't cryogenically frozen.
We don't know.
That we know of. Maybe he's still on the Disney lot somewhere.
Be.
You think he has like a single chamber in Disney World?
Oh, yeah. There's a vault right under Main Street with his frozen body down there.
He's just keeping it on ice. Ted Williams. I knew this one because there was some fighting over his estate, and in his estate is him.
Okay.
So that was definitely brought up in court a lot. But yeah, this is when science has finally caught up beyond alchemy to trying to figure out ways to preserve to give you a chance.
It's because science has advanced to know and understand why and how aging occurs.
With some level of confidence, too, that it will eventually happen.
We're getting into some bonker stuff.
Yeah, in reality, I mean, there's always a chance that science could just basically spasm and we could get something very quickly.
I want to know where we're at on cloning. How long was Dolly the sheep? How far back was that?
Ooh, I want to say that was like the 60s. It was a while ago.
No, it was the lab in like Norway or something like that, or Sweden, that had cloned the sheep. This was like big news when I was younger.
And then they buried it. Maybe it was the 80s.
80s or 90s?
Because we hadn't heard anything about it.
Regardless, where are we at with this? Have we advanced so much that they were like, oh shit, like we're cloning humans now, but we can't really bring that up because of the ethical and the religious dilemmas. So just for friends and family. Because aren't they cloning pets? Doesn't Tom Brady have a clone of his dead dog?
That's what I was about to bring up. I saw it. I have a moral reasoning to never click on any article about Tom Brady, so I didn't do it, but I did see the headline, and he said that the dog that he has now is a clone of his old dog that died.
Yeah.
So
it's when you got the cash.
When you got Brady money, magic money in the 90s cured some things for him. Tom Brady money in the 2020s apparently gets you cloned dogs.
He's doing his own quest for immortality at this point with all the TB12. Yeah.
And his face was just the first attempt, and it didn't go well.
It's just a side effect, man. That and of kissing your son for just a second too long. Listen, I kiss my kid on lips. He kissed me on lips, but there's a difference.
There's a pause.
And he also made him come back. And there was a linger.
Yeah, now that guy's part owner of the Raiders.
Listen, I like the stuff. His football knowledge is all that's important to me.
Okay. So this is a tech entrepreneur. I don't know if have you heard this? Have you seen this? Have you read about this?
Okay. When you said Brian Johnson earlier, I thought you meant the fucking Liver King guy.
Is that his real name?
Yeah. His real name is Brian Johnson. He's the guy that does all the crazy, just like carnivore. He eats liver. He does the stuff about like connecting to the earth, walking barefoot.
And then a shitload of steroids?
Yes. This isn't the same guy,
No,
right?
no.
Okay, yes, he is that guy. So, okay, this is going to make so much more sense because I was hoping you weren't going to use that guy as an example.
God, no, not a chance.
Because he looks horrible.
Yeah. This is a tech entrepreneur, and he came up with this thing that he calls Project Blueprint. Basically, the key components of the protocol, you got to love anybody that has a protocol. Mm-hmm. That's just great. The supplements that he takes will range anywhere from collagen peptides, normal, right?
I take that.
Yeah. Metformin.
Metformin.
Is that a normal thing that you've heard?
I've heard it. Not sure if it's normal.
Rapamycin.
Nope.
N-acetylcysteine. No idea. Diet actually kind
Is
of
that
makes...
NAID? I have heard of getting NAID drips.
Maybe that's it.
Okay.
Diet kind of makes sense to me. Follows a mostly plant-based diet with a focus on nutrient-dense foods. I mean, a tale as old as time. Back when we had hunter-gatherer societies, you were sustaining yourself on mostly plant-based diets, and then you were banking on getting a kill to be able to eat meat at certain points of the time.
Yeah.
Like every
That's why
meal
people
that
had
you
to
eat,
evolve to agrarian societies.
yeah, every meal that you eat probably doesn't need a protein with it.
It's nice, but no, it doesn't.
Yeah, it is. It's a king's way to eat. Johnson engages in high-intensity interval training and resistance exercises. Resistance exercises are obviously going to do less of a toll on your joints, while this high-intensity interval training is raising
for your heart rate, your cardio,
your heart rate,
your respiratory system. Yeah.
Going back and forth. So you're doing the work on
Cardiovascular
the
shit.
Yeah. A goal that I would love to attain, this is like my one life goal to hit this, to prioritize getting between 8 and 9 hours of quality sleep each night.
It's so hard. I want it so bad, but it's so hard.
That's my immortality, is being able to get just an average of 8 hours of sleep.
And I know how good it is for you to get that amount of sleep, but so is just watching weird shit online.
Well, life gets in the way.
Yeah.
You got to get up
you
early
mean the
for work.
algorithm that just kills.
Regenerative medicine. Johnson undergoes various treatments, such as stem cell injections. We've heard a lot about this. PRP injections. I've actually had one of these
Platelet-rich
before.
plasma, yeah.
Yeah, I can attest that it actually did heal.
So that's where they draw some of your own blood.
Yep.
They then
Throw it in a spinner.
Centrifuge, and then separate the plasma and then inject that back into your system or back into the problem area.
It's platelet-rich blood that they've spun out, and they take that basically enriched blood and they put it to where the affected area was.
Okay.
So mine was an Achilles strain, and they used a big-ass needle, and after they pulled it out, they spun it, and they shoved it in. It hurt it was the back of my Achilles, and then down on my heel is planters. I had torn that fascia in there. And he told me, he's like, avoid drinking, avoid any kind of icing or anything like that, because we want all those platelets to stay in that one area. We want it to be inflamed.
Yeah.
And it healed it like twice as fast as it had ever healed before. It was actually pretty shocking how well that it worked. Yeah. It also wasn't covered by insurance, and it was stupid expensive. Red light therapy. Red light therapy is something that is catching on as far as kind of shutting your body down, getting it better for sleep.
Yeah. So
you can fall in and get 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night.
What's crazy is I think that's very, very simple. When my kid was a baby, the light that we had in his room to not wake you was a red light.
Really?
Yeah. And so it's supposed to keep you, like if you were to wake up, it's supposed to not, actually wake you up. You're able to go back to sleep.
Probably basically the equivalent of like blue light glasses for your eyes. Red light
one's
therapy
to
for your
reduce
body.
strain. The other one is just to not engage certain parts of your brain that are going to wake you up, I think.
Okay. That makes some sense. So Brian Johnson's regimen doesn't seem insane, right? There was a point in time he did stop doing this, but he did it for a number of years, where he would take blood from donors, young men. His son, in fact, was one of these. And he would get blood transfusions with this new, younger blood.
Not at all creepy.
No, not at all creepy. There were other things that he did. I mean, he times his erections. He actually charts the erections that he has at night while he sleeps. I don't know how he does that, if he's getting a solid 8 or 9. But just to make sure, as a tester of that heart strength that he's building up through how long he can keep an erection. Kind of makes sense on the surface, but then when you look at all the charting that you have to do with the chubs that you get, it has to become tedious at some point.
Just you have a boner journal.
Yeah, and a timed event just doesn't seem like it's really, you get the joy out of it when you gotta...
Is that the key to immortality, is a hard dick?
I mean, it's probably an indicator at some point. But he's just an interesting guy who is throwing a lot of money at this. Like I said, he did discontinue the injections of blood from the younger men because science was just like, dude, there's nothing here.
There was a ethical dilemma perhaps on it, and just public being like, you're fucking weird, dude.
Well, being a very rich man, he was able to pay these donors really well. But also at the same time, he is listening to science and health enough to be like, we don't see any benefit of this for you.
Move on.
It's not doing, let's pass this.
So taking it a step further, where a lot of his is a combination of lifestyle changes or lifestyle that's very positive for him.
Yeah.
But then also some of the science behind that. There's a woman named Elizabeth Parrish. She's the founder of this company called BioViva. And gene therapy is, I fucking don't understand. If someone could please do that. But from what I read about it, gene therapy is you're able to go ahead and when you extract and they're able to analyze what genes you have and everything, they're able to somehow modify those genes. And when they put them back into you, they're supposed to have a positive effect.
Talking about like CRISPR.
Yes. What this would do is, and you're going to have to kind of walk me through this because we studied about the telomeres and everything like that. So you have your DNA, you have your strands of DNA. The telomeres are essentially, the way I visualize in my head is you have an electrical wire. The telomere is essentially the protein or material that is protecting the strand of DNA.
Yep, it's on all 4 corners.
Yep, it's on all 4 corners. Now, just like a wire, if that plastic were to crack and expose the wire is going to have damage to it or has the potential to have damage to it.
Yep.
As we start to age, the telomeres that are protecting our DNA, those start to essentially fray. And as they fray, they expose our DNA to damage. When our DNA gets damaged, our ability to replicate blood cells is directly tied to how much undamaged DNA we have. The less DNA that's undamaged, the less red, or blood cells are able to duplicate. That's what causes aging, is we slowly break down and these telomeres on our DNA shorten, exposing and damaging more of our DNA and leaving us with less material to essentially duplicate cells from.
And it's also where you get different things, like you get cells that are, as they're starting to diminish and they're starting to lose, you start to see them morph into different things like cancers or different diseases that your body.
So it's not just about aging. There's a lot of other stuff that goes in with it.
These mutations that'll happen inside your DNA.
So she used gene therapy to essentially lengthen and reestablish those telomeres on her DNA. Now, in 2015, she was 44 years old chronologically. You have a different biological age based upon. She was 65 biologically. In 6 months, her biological age went down to 45. And in 2018, her biological age was down to 30.
Huh.
They're still doing studies and everything. It's still an isolated example, but it's an example where it appears to be working. Now, I don't know if this is a Benjamin Button situation as they're monitoring and your body just keeps getting younger or something. I would imagine, again, this is a new frontier of science that we probably don't have a ton of expertise about.
Yeah.
So, and I'm wondering too, I want to say that it was just the one treatment that she's done. She hasn't redone the treatment.
So maybe she was a little too strong with...
Well, that's what I'm saying is there a stopping point? Between 2015 and 2018, it's gone down biologically for her age 35 years.
And she's only gotten 3 years older.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah, but I mean, how many people are going to look at that and been like, that looks fucking promising?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the sweet spot is you need to do it at an age where you're still pretty pliable, pretty flexible, pretty athletic.
Yeah, but again, you don't know. It's weird. It's, the stuff that they're doing, they're still after the same goal, but the stuff that they're doing is just becoming less crazy, but in another way, even more crazy from a standpoint of saying, like, it's gene editing, man.
Yeah,
like,
we're on the edge of the technological frontier.
Correct. But at the same time, like, I don't know if you would consider that like biotech or something. The simple fact that we can take out and modify our genes in such a way, what CRISPR allows you to determine the gender of your baby, right?
It does. It's a gene editing process.
Yes, but it can take place essentially very early, like after conception in that, yeah.
I don't know how much they've tested it, but in theory, that's what they say they can do.
But on the flip side, where it's just a natural lifestyle, there are places in the world where immortality, again, pipe dream, but at the same time, longevity, a longer life, a healthier life, a better quality of life. There's these pockets all over the world where this is a reality, and they're called blue zones.
It's such a cool thing, and there's been pushback. There's been obviously people questioning the studies. I don't really know kind of when you get down to brass tacks, and Okinawa seems to be a weird one, but also Japan's population as a whole seems to be in an odd decline, maybe, I think is what it would be called, just because they're focused so much on work that they're not having children or anything else. But these regions are just reportedly where people live longer, healthier lives.
Hold on. You mean the same Okinawa that the dude that was sent by the emperor could have ended up with and possibly found something akin to the Fountain of Youth? He found it.
Yeah, they're living longer. It blows me away to think about this, and maybe it's just where I've decided that I'll get into, but these people are living longer, healthier lives into their 90s and then into their hundreds, which is, I mean, an centenarian, I think is what it's called, over 100. It's got to be a crazy life. And you and I have talked about it. It's always, there's never some lady that's 106. They're like, how'd you make it to 106, Greta? And she's like, I took care of myself. I walked a lot.
Cigarettes and whiskey.
Yeah, that's pretty much always what it is. I had a glass of red wine a day, and I smoked 5 cigs a week. Like there's never really anything that you would think that they would say that they end up saying. Obviously,
Well, that doesn't sound right.
yeah, it's still movement and things like that, but there's other factors that'll help you live longer in life. So these places are Okinawa, as we previously mentioned, the Nuoro province in Sardinia in Italy, the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. There's an island in Greece called Assyria that is supposedly just a Greek paradise. Then, interestingly enough, there's one urban center called the town, I believe, is named Loma Linda, California. Now, they attribute Loma Linda, California to being a large population of Seventh-day Adventists whose religious practices kind of fall in line with the blue zones as far as these different factors. And the factors that go into really having a good blue zone are going to be diet, much like we talked about with Brian, plant-based, rich in fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains. So a good rounded, we're not talking about the food pyramid because that's all bullshit that was created by Big Breakfast, but an actual like natural diet.
A lot of this kind of has the commonality of being coastal.
Yeah.
Or at least close to a water source, which also the Mediterranean diet is like a big thing that's attributed to more longevity and everything. And a lot of these places, again, Italy, Sardinia, Okinawa being an island. I'm guessing that, you just said a peninsula in Costa Rica. We have a place in Greece, which is nothing but islands. And then Loma Linda, California, which is probably somewhere close to the coast. But again, that's more of the lifestyle that those people live. There's got to be something, with a seafood adjacent diet where you're getting that stuff, but you're also doing a lot of vegetables and fruits and things like that.
High protein, low fat.
I wonder if there's also a correlation between like equatorially where those places are difference wise for like what they're able to grow and kind of what the similarities in food are.
You don't, there's nothing, none of those places sound like they're cold. So they're going to have longer growing seasons. You're going to have more natural vegetation around to eat. You're eating a localized diet.
Yeah.
Moderate meat consumption. We talked about that earlier. It'll sit in your intestines.
And I'm guessing a lot of it is not red meat.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fish.
Yep. For sure. Low intake of processed food, sugary drinks, and unhealthy fats. So as long as you can cut that kind of stuff out, I mean, that's kind of common sense. I think we all know that by now. For physical activity,
We don't know that.
Well, we know it.
We know we just don't give a fuck.
Refuse, yeah. Regular daily movements, often through gardening, walking, or other outdoor activities, fulfilling things. Incorporation of physical activity into daily routines, so you're not just sitting at a desk all day, pounding it out in front of the computer, just trying to live your life in a way to make enough money to be able to go out and have some fun on the weekend.
Yeah, to age yourself even more during that short period of time.
This one I found pretty interesting because it's something that I pass off a lot, but social connections, strong social networks and family ties, a sense of community and belonging. So almost that feeling of love around you to know that like there is a mental trick to thinking if I'm gone, these people will miss me.
Loneliness and depression are a stressor.
Yeah.
Stressors age you.
Absolutely. And leading right into stress management, practices such as meditation, prayer, spending time in nature, avoidance of chronic stress. It's a silent killer.
Good fucking luck.
Well, and I'm sure some of these places really feel that way.
If I lived on an island in Greece, I can guarantee you my stress level would go down significantly.
Yeah, it seems like those people live pretty stress-free. And then there's just the easy shit, the stuff that should be common sense too, access to clean water and sanitation. Of course, a more forward society.
Minimization of possibility of disease and sickness, yeah.
Affordable healthcare, that seems to be a pretty good part of this. But a sense of purpose and optimism. You have a drive and a goal in life. You have something that's waking you up in the morning that you want to chase, something that you want to achieve. If you have those goals in your life, you're probably going to be more health conscious.
Yeah, and you run into those situations, where a wife, or an older couple, the wife dies and then the husband follows right behind them, or like vice versa. There's a certain thing to be said about the motivation essentially to live.
Yeah. And that motivation, it seems like for so long after doing this whole entire episode, is just trying to chase extra time, whether it be mythical, whether it be scientific, whether it be drinking blood or drinking gold.
Again, it's the unreached horizon. It's, if we ever, it's tied intrinsically to so many different things. You want enough time to try to be successful to accomplish all your goals. If you felt like you had more time, you wouldn't have to cram everything into the limited amount of time you've had, reducing stress. The other thing is, if we ever want to think about interstellar travel or anything like that, time is the ultimate factor in that, because we're nowhere close to anything. And with our current lives, lifespans, we're not in range of doing anything significant. So I guess that's kind of the first hurdle you have to cross, is extending life, trying to find our own version of immortality before you can even take that next step.
There was a generation that saw the invention of flight and then making it to the moon in their lifetime. Those people were pretty spoiled in seeing how far that went for travel.
Well, that's when you started watching the Jetsons. You're like, everything's going to be cities up in the clouds, and we're all, awesome, robot butlers.
Well, turns out we're still trying to get a handle on self-driving cars and not flying cars.
Exactly.
We're still on the road.
Still elusive. It still eludes us.
Yeah, maybe one day. It's funny you were talking about the Mediterranean diet, because I do take olive oil pills for that same thing after meals.
And nice smooth stools.
I think that's a lot of what it is we're obviously never going to find the fountain of youth. But at the same time, I think I've gotten to a point in my life where I am starting to look at some things like that and think, if I could steal a year or two here just by doing something silly for a little while, maybe it's not the worst thing.
Yeah. All right, man. I got nothing else.
No, I think we covered this pretty well. Hopefully it was as fun for you guys as it was to us. It's not a traditional episode as far as we got to dance around and do some kind of free play.
But it's something that's so ingrained in every single culture at every single time in, recorded and even pre-recorded history. It's this thing that, how like we talk about sometimes how civilizations kind of find the same advancement at different times and everything, pyramids, building methods, things like that. This is also a constant in every culture and everything. It's the thing that binds us together, is just wanting to have more time.
Yeah, no matter how different everybody is, there's still one ultimate goal for everybody.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us on another episode, and we'll catch you next week.
Peace.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us for another episode. If you like what you heard, hit that subscribe and like button. Follow us. If you didn't like what you heard, still hit that anyway, because we'll probably cover something in the future that you do like. Please follow us on our social media. Adam, hit them with it.
Our Instagram is Historically High Pod, Historically High POD, and we are on Twitter at Historically High. That's Historically HI.
All right. And if you guys want to send in any feedback, suggestions, hit us up on those two, or you can even do it on Gmail. It's historicallyhighpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again.
Peace.